Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to our discussion today about the realities of self-service and analytics. We'll be talking about Cognos, but I think a lot of our topics today will cover a variety of different tools depending on what you're using. For those that don't know me, my name is Rory Cornelius. I am the analytics practice lead at PM Square. Been working with IT and data analytics for a little over 20 years at this point. And so I've seen a variety of different environments, different installations, and worked with a lot of different customers, as have my colleagues here today. But before we dive in, I want to encourage everyone to be active participants today. This will be a lot more fun, a lot more interesting if you ask questions, tell us about your experiences, and just be part of the show. Um, if you're joining for the first time, I want to welcome you and suggest that you go check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/pmsquare, to see previous tech and trends videos that we've done. There was a really good one last week on IBM Manta. I know Greg here has done one on IBM Analytics Content Hub, so be sure to check that out. And then also, we have a few more of these coming up in the next few weeks. Go check out pmsquare.com/events to see what else is coming. So I know there's one on exploring Amazon Q, and then a live session with Greg if you're in the Chicago area about managing multiple BI tools in an AI world. So be sure to check those out. All right. With that, let's give our other people here a chance to introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Greg. Feel free to fill us in.
Yeah, thanks, Rory. My name is Greg Jungels. I'm one of the senior consultants here at PM Square, and like Rory, I've got just over 20 years of experience with all things data.
Thanks, Greg. Danny?
Yeah, my name is Danny Gargus. I've also been working in the analytics and database and data spheres for around 25 years or so. So you got quite the amount of experience on this team here for us to try to solve some of these issues.
We've seen a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yes.
All right. So with that, let's just start with the basics. How would you guys describe true self-service analytics? How does it differ between maybe the IT team and the BI team or business users? What have you guys seen out there?
Well, for me, it's trying to get your users um, to get the data that they need for themselves. Obviously, the self-service piece of it, that's the kind of the definition, without a lot of IT intervention or um, just to make it easy as possible for them to get the data that they need, because IT staffs are, they don't have a lot of time. They've got other projects and stuff going on, unless you've got dedicated people, specifically to handle the business, or you know, to create reports and the sort of stuff for the business. So, um, but it could run the gamut between, um, IT being completely hands off versus doing every little thing. So, the IT may think, well, here's the tool, knock yourself out. We gave you some data, do what you will with it. And other organizations are more of, we don't want end users touching anything because we'll do it all ourselves, and that's not really self-service. So it may just be that they allow people to run their own reports and that sort of thing. It's I've seen it a lot of different ways in a lot of different companies. It just depends on the practices that they have set up.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one. Self-service is always a buzzword that people call out, but definitely means different things to different people. Um, so I guess in your experience, like when you look at clients, what is some of the misconceptions that you see a lot that clients have something in mind when they're talking about self-service? What are some of those misconceptions, maybe?
Well, I can take that one. So I think the biggest misconception here is that when you talk about self-service analytics, people expect that anyone can go in and build a report or a dashboard, right? I mean, you're still going to have uh, an inclination to do so, right? I mean, you got to want to do it. I mean, you're never going to be able to do it if you don't want to do it. You know, that goes with anything in life, right? Um, but the big thing is, you know, you still have to kind of understand your data, right? And know where it's coming from and everything. And part of the aspect of self-service analytics is being able to have all of your data in a central location that's been well governed and everything, right? So you're not necessarily just, you know, saying, "Hey, Rory, go access this system over here and build a report however you want," right?
Yeah, and a lot of times, you know, the C-level people in the organization, they've been sold this idea of getting this tool to help us get all this data, and it's like, well, I bought this for you. Where's all my stuff? How come you're not building anything? Well, we don't actually have anybody that knows how to do that yet. So, you know, there's a lot of uh, s- stuff gets lost in translation sometimes between the presentation of here's what you're ultimately going to end up with versus here's kind of where we're at now, and you know the things that we still have to do to get everything ready.
Hmm. Think of it as the if we build it, they will come kind of
Yeah,
for any Field of Dreams fans out there.
yeah.
Um,
Eventually, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, go
I
ahead,
was just
Greg.
gonna say you're not necessarily gonna, you know, have the maintenance people out there building reports, right?
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, right. Just because you have a data set sitting out there doesn't mean everybody's going to jump in and just start taking it on and building these amazing reports.
Yep.
So I guess what have you guys seen that may help with that gap, or what could be done to kind of improve that reality?
You want to start, Danny?
oh, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess for one, you have to have tools available to you that, you know, make it easy, right? You have to have a good starting point. You know, if they don't have, you know, it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, right?
Hmm.
So, um, when you're building a puzzle, what do? You know, most of the time you start with the edges and work your way in. So that's kind of what you have to do with this is you have to build your boundaries, you know, and know what you can get and how to get it, you know, easily and efficiently.
Yeah, and I think you know you end users aren't going to be able to do everything, obviously. That's why they're end users and they're not in IT. So it's up to IT to supply the data in a format that is usable, that can be, you know, consumed by the application that you're using, whether that's Cognos or Power BI or Tableau or anything. The end users aren't going to be the ones that are getting that unless they're importing Excel spreadsheets, which does happen a lot. But that's limited because you can only do so much with an Excel spreadsheet, in my opinion. So IT has some responsibility there to make it available, give the access to wherever the data resides, and then, you know, at the very minimum, and then your users can start, you know, uh, looking at it, going through it, trying to figure out what they have, and that's probably a whole other question that you've got related to that somewhere.
Well, right. I think that kind of leads into so how do you get your users to be able to use it if they can? Is that setting up lunch and learns? Is that user group training? What have you seen that works best to try to get people to understand the data, understand the tool, and actually be able to use that self-service feature?
Well, obviously call us, right?
Sure,
I mean, that's number one.
obviously.
No, you know, I think a big part of this is getting the business users involved, you know, up front, early on in the process. Gone are the days where you have an IT or data team that just goes out and builds out a big, huge data warehouse, and then, you know, a year and a half later releases it to the user base and says, "Here you go," right? Because a
Mhm.
lot of times what happens is the business users don't necessarily see the value in it or don't necessarily answer the questions that they are asking, right? So the more you can get them involved early on in the process to kind of curate your data and bring it all together in a more of a central location that is easily accessible. I think that's how you got to get started, right? And again, giving them a starting point, giving them some reports and dashboards, and kind of say, oh wow, this is pretty cool. I mean, a lot of us we've learned different programming languages over the years and stuff, right? And what do? You start out with the simplest little hello world application, and then you figure out, wow, I can do that, but if I only did this, I can make this so much better, and oh, I can prompt this. Cool, I mean, there's so many things that go into this, and like I said, you don't want to just force feed, what you think is what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's true. There needs to be a starting point for the amount of data that they're going to get, or their department, or like if you're doing it specifically for the accounting department, then make sure that all the accounting data is available to them, whether they use it or want it or not. Then they can build out their model or pick and choose, what they're going to report on. And this isn't important to us, but this is, because IT doesn't know. It's just data sitting out there to us. So, but I do think you have to, like you said, get them involved early, and then find somebody that's going to be that person, that's going to, like a point person or a super user or something like that, that's going to take it and run with it and go, I'm going to build out a model here. I'm going to help the rest of my team. Because if you don't have that person, then the people that are more apprehensive about working with it, they don't have anybody to go to, then it kind of stops dead in the water. But you do, like you said, Rory, you have to find that person and get them excited about it, and get them, or maybe as Greg said, you got to want to do that. So um, if you don't have anybody that wants to do it, then you're kind of going to be dead in the water.
Yeah, you know what, Danny, you brought up a good point about giving them more than what they asked for, right? I mean, we always talk about under promise, over deliver. I know one of the first things that I do when I go into a client is say, just because that's how you've been doing things doesn't mean that's how you have to do things, right? A lot of times they would say, here's an Excel spreadsheet. Can you make this into a report? And it's like, well, yeah, but we have so much more data available to us. If I can show you this, would that be good? And I think that's where the power of self-serve analytics comes into play, because it gives them a voice on what else can be done.
Yeah. And going back to one of your original questions, Roy, was about how do you do the training? I have done training for my users before, and just sit down and say, look, here's everything, and here's what the data means. Because even somebody that's in the department that they're reporting on, like if they're in accounting department and they're looking at accounting data, it isn't necessarily always obvious what everything is when you create it. So there has to be some training on sort of how to use the data. Like this is an aggregatable field, and this is just an attribute, that sort of thing, because you can get bad results if you don't know what you're doing with the data and exactly how to use it. So I've tried to train the people that I'm working with in the past just around, not necessarily like how to build a report, but how to look at the data and understand how to use the data. And for the most part, they catch on pretty quickly, because it is things that they've seen before, but it may not be named the same, or we may have to change the names. Like I named it incorrectly. Well, we don't even call it that. Well, that's what it was called in the database. So let's change the name so that we all understand what we're talking about, that sort of thing. So I think there has to be some back and forth there, so that the users feel comfortable when they go in and they see this field or these set of fields, they can go, oh, I know exactly what that is, and I know how to use it.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a tight integration, especially at the modeling stage, between the business users and the modeler, to make sure that they're setting it up, naming things appropriately. Yeah, totally makes sense. And then I would say feedback often. Have those meetings with the business users and make sure that it's working the way you expected it to from the beginning. take that feedback, make changes, and help them understand. Kind of back to the power user comment though, how have you been able to find those power users or figure out who can be that that sort of champion to be able to push the self-service and be able to help be a little bit more mentor and hands-on with the business users?
That's tough, a tough question, because generally we go in, we don't know all the players. We don't know who's has the ability or wants to. So unfortunately, we kind of have to leave it up to the business to sort of decide, who they think would be a good person to do it, and let them kind of tell us who that person's going to be. And a lot of times it's somebody that's going to need a prod. It's like, I don't really want to do it, but I'll try it. Okay, well, I'm going to try to make it as easy for you as I can and help you out along the way. But if I can get you to learn it, then you can help everybody else. Um, s- uh, you know, if it's at a company that I'm employed at that's not a consulting company like PM Square, then I would probably know who to go to, who that person would be. But otherwise, we just kind of leave it up to the managers, whoever you're working with. I don't know. Have you seen anything different, Greg, than that?
No, I was going to say kind of the same thing. I mean, that's as a consultant, part of our job is to kind of get in there and root out the different actors, in the project, right? I mean, there are,
Mhm.
like you said, there's going to be power users, going to be people that maybe know the business. There's going to be people that know the systems, but there's, none of them really want to, combine themselves to make it a success. So I think, like Danny just said, it's you pretty much kind of have to interview everybody, and maybe just throw out there like, hey, you want to see something pretty cool, and then bring them over and start showing them around and everything, and it becomes apparent rather quickly if they're interested in expanding on that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've seen probably similar. I think I remember at least one or two instances where I did like a lunch and learn to kind of show off or at least give a little bit of a sneak preview of like the new functionality or new abilities that are coming, and kind of keep an eye out for who actually comments or who asks questions after the fact. I think people who tend to be involved when you're talking about new technology or new functionality tend to be the people who are really going to be a good advocate for it.
I've also run across the people that think they know it and want to do it, and then they can be a challenge to deal with themselves. Kind of trying
Yeah,
to rein them in a little bit.
yeah, for sure. So all of that has been pretty kind of general, whatever BI tool, and we've done a lot of Cognos installations. Is there anything with Cognos specifically where you see unique challenges or anything in particular that jumps out as harder to do self-service?
Harder to do. I don't. I don't know, because to me, all the well, not all of them, I guess. Most of the tools out there have some type of modeling tool. So that to me is the hardest part. Is making sure that your data works together. That you've got your joins and um, you got your aggregation set up correctly, and you've got all your fields that your dates are converted correctly, and all these things. So um, if you can get that set up right, generally everything else kind of goes okay. I know Cognos has data sets now, and so working with those and trying to figure out when you're supposed to use those. If you've got a slow running jobs or reports, it's a little funky with Cognos in that you create a data module and then you can create a data set of the data module, but then you have to create another data module of the data set because you can't use it. You can't write a report directly against the data set. So that was confusing to me when I first did it the first time. I was like, I don't understand why I just can't go against the data set. But um, So anyway, there's some things like that that are a little tricky versus I think Power BI just it has a modeling piece, but then it pulls in the data. It actually kind of works like a data set in itself, sort of, where it just runs and it pulls back the data, and you can just kind of report against it, kind of as a one piece deal.
Mm-hmm. For those not deep into the Cognos world, a data set is basically a pre-aggregated piece of data that Cognos can report on. So instead of querying back to the database, it's already loaded, and it uses Spark query engine to be able to pull the data quickly, which, yeah, I think correlates a lot to the Power BI side of things, where it tends to be that data set-like functionality. But jump over to you, Greg. Anything from your side?
Yeah. Back in the day, you only had Framework Manager, right, to build out your
Mm-hmm.
models, and you pretty much need a dedicated IT staff to build out those models. And kind of goes back to building out this massive data warehouse enterprise reporting solution and then force feeding it to the users, right? Well, with the advent of the data modules and data sets, it gives these power users more the ability to kind of build out models on their own, right? But again, you still have to have the knowledge of the data. You still have to, as Danny said, you still have to know how to join tables, because as we all know, you can get stuck in some SQL queries that, you just chase down for a week trying to figure out why is it not giving me the results I want? And it's like, well, maybe you had a join done wrong or whatever, right? So, and then obviously with Cognos, you can upload Excel files, CSV files, and stuff, and work directly with them too. So I think that's where some of the self-serve analytics comes into play.
Yeah, for sure. Being able to upload your own data is huge. I mean, everybody uses Excel, and as much as we've over the years tried to suggest to people that maybe Excel isn't the end all be all, we can actually do it in the BI tool. That it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah.
People need Excel. They may be able to upload it, be able to report off of it, but it's not going anywhere.
Yep. Unfortunately, yeah, because I always say I hate it when somebody says, "Hey, can we dump that report to Excel?" And it's like, why? Well, because I want to do some more stuff to it. And it's like, well, then we didn't do our job.
Right. Right. We should have had that requirement up front. We could have built it in. You don't need to do that, but yeah, for sure. On the data module front, I just wanted to do one call out there of my experience that I've seen. So like you said, Framework Manager tends to be a huge model, and then you break it down into packages. It takes a lot of IT effort. It takes a lot of work up front. I've done it with data modules before, where I mean, they're called modules for a reason. You can make smaller data modules and have them available to the power users to build off of. So it gives them a starting point. It gives them a little bit of a knowledge of the relationships between tables, and then they can even pull two data modules into one to be able to combine different data sources, to be able to combine different data on their own, but it at least gives them a starting point. I don't know if you guys have seen anything similar.
Yeah, I think you can think of a data module as being like a self-service data mart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're building out a specific set of data, and have at it.
Yeah, it takes a little bit more of knowledge than just pulling in data fields into a report, but having that starting point to be able to see it, I think, offers more business users the opportunity to be able to use them and be able to pull in that uploaded data that we were talking about, and tie it with the data source behind the scenes, be able to put together something that they maybe wouldn't have otherwise. Kind of on that route. So Cognos has always had Report Studio. Reports have been around forever. Dashboards have been around for quite a while now. I'm trying to remember, like 2015, I think those came out. But they've been continuously adding on to the dashboard functionality. How have you guys seen Cognos dashboards used as far as self-service compared to reports, maybe?
I'd love for you to take this one, Danny.
Thanks, I will. I found a lot of our the users that I've dealt with, if they start with the dashboarding piece of Cognos, they like it a lot better, because it's just easier for them to use. Um, they can just pull in a visualization really quickly, add a couple data points to it, and they've kind of got what they need right there. And then the issue comes in, then it's like sometimes I can't really get it to do what I want it to do exactly. And then I'll look at it and it's like, well, dashboarding doesn't really do that yet. We're working on it. IBM's working on it, but it can't quite do that. So maybe an alternative is to do it this other way, or just not have that to display right now, or something, along those lines. Or we can take it over to the reporting side and probably be able to do that sort of thing. But even using like they'll go and pull in a data table just to look at the straight data like it's in there, kind of like was what we would do with a list in reporting. So they still go to the dashboard to do that sort of thing, to get everything they need. And it, they can create a filter, and it updates all of their visualizations that they've got on there at the same time, and they really like it. So I think the people that start with the dashboards like it more than the people who haven't historically used it, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you've been a report author in Cognos for a long time, dashboards seem very limiting.
Yeah,
But if you're coming in as a business user, just trying to explore the data, understand it, create some visuals, and don't care too much about the particular formatting and functionality, yeah, I mean, I think it opens up a lot of possibilities for that.
yeah, and especially if you've got your higher level. I mean, even a lot of places have C level people that may go in there and want to look at something really quick. Well, let's give them a small data module that just has what they're looking for if we need to do that. And that way they don't get lost. They got everything really finely packaged that they need, and they can just pull in whatever they're looking for really quickly, get in, get out, and I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
and not, and maybe that makes it easier for them, and there would be more adoption for that level if you can make it precise for what they're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good call out that maybe we don't do enough of yeah, kind of talking to the end user, understanding what pieces they need. They'll probably say everything,
That's
that
really not the
may not
case,
really
though.
be the case.
No, they
Yeah,
always
there may
say that
be a
they want
handful.
everything, but yeah.
Uh-huh. And then we
Yeah,
can make it easier for them.
yeah, you see, that's the power of Cognos in general, though, right? Is it's a pixel perfect reporting engine, right? I mean, the dashboarding gives you a little bit more interactivity, and I think that's kind of another kind of a misconception with people is, they want dashboards, right? Well, sometimes you can create a pretty cool report that has all of the KPIs and metrics, on the screen in a dashboard-like view, so then you can act upon that, right? Whereas from a dashboarding perspective, they want to be able to slide around, do sliders and all that kind of stuff. I remember back in, was it 2012, 13, when active reports came around, and they had these sliders that you could, expand the date, from small to big and all kinds of stuff like that. So, I mean, that's from my perspective, that's what dashboarding is all about, right? Is full interactivity.
Hmm. Yeah, having that full interactivity on that level while still keeping the report authoring on the back end to do your pixel perfect and do your operational reporting and batch reports and bursting and all of that functionality. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. All right. Kind of on that note, data governance is a big topic these days. I mean, it's been a while, but I know even like I mentioned last week we did a session on data governance. How do you balance data governance and the security necessary for having it available to those people while still keeping it as flexible as you need to be able to do self-service?
Man, that's an art. I think you're, every day you learn something new with regards to that, right? But again, from the data governance standpoint, my opinion is in order to be successful with self-serve analytics, you have to have a well-defined like data catalog, to where you maybe even apply some data lineage to. You have to know where your data's come from. I mean, how many times have we showed up to clients and their database field names or the table names are like R1234, and it's like, oh, that's population, so as far as data governance goes, you definitely have to have everything defined well. From a security standpoint, that gets a little bit more tricky, because obviously you could have multiple levels of organization. You have different departments. Again, that's the tricky part of projects usually.
Yeah, I think for security, I mean, you could have something, especially for something like HR, which always needs to be locked down more so. So if you've got HR data in your environment, then you create a special data module or something for that specifically, and then you lock it down to only HR people can get to it. But for data governance, you got to have one source of the truth for your stuff, and I think that starts really on the database side. That goes back to, I think, your IT again, working with the business to figure out where that is. Where are you pulling this data from? What do you historically use? We may have this same data in 3 or 4 different tables, but what do you look at, and what do you trust, and what have you validated, and what do you supply to your auditors? Because if you ask them that question, they're going to go, oh, well, we give them this. Well, then that's what we need to use, because that's what you're reporting to the government or whatever, or to the state, or to whoever, your shareholders and board. So if that's the main source of truth, then that's where we need to be using it from. So now let's work from that, and we can maybe ignore everything else for now, and start reporting and getting that data in a, if it's not in a good usable format, then we may have to make some tweaks to it or something to get it right and get everything that we need, or combine it with some other stuff that isn't necessarily stuff we're reporting to an auditor, and then make that available, and then you can work on the continuing of the modeling and stuff like that.
Yeah, finding that main source can sometimes be harder than what it seems, for sure.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So AI is all over the place. AI is in everything, and we keep talking more and more about it. How do you see AI and maybe machine learning affecting the future of self-service analytics? Do you think it changes things significantly in the near term, in the long term? How do you guys see that playing out?
Well, I think from an AI standpoint, a lot of it comes down to, again, having a good data model, having it organized in a manner that you can query, using large language models or what have you, to get, the answers that you hoped to get, right? I mean, there's still a big black hole as far as I'm concerned with AI, but every day it gets better and better and better. So it would be great to be able to see, say, hey, give me a cool graph, a cool visualization about camping equipment, right? Well, our own Paul Mendelson has done some pretty cool stuff with that, being able to kind of extract, for lack of better terms, data from the queries that are coming from, when you run a reporter in Cognos, right? I mean, the queries are cached, so he's able to extract data from that and kind of give some AI insights on that,
Yeah, I think AI is still kind of a long-term thing right now. You're right, Greg. It's not. There is a big hole. It's not obviously not fully developed. And I think your model, like you said, definitely has to be modeled well, but it also has to be small and concise. And this is my opinion, because if you've got, especially if you're trying to get self-service for, again, a higher level employer that doesn't have time to, go in there and write a bunch of stuff, they're going to want to come in quickly and go, just all I want to see, just show me sales for last year by quarter, by state for my region, and if your module, your data set, or whatever you want to call it for them, is small enough, it can do that. But what if you've got 5, 10 different dates in there? Well, which date does it use, and how does it know that how do you know that it got the right one? Oh, I didn't want to use that date, or something else, so so there's some challenges for AI to pick up exactly what you're talking about, I think, in a lot of cases. And I think if you can, again, make a smaller data module to where it's only certain things for that user or that department, that it's going to be easier to use AI.
Yeah, with AI, you still have to train the models, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
start out with a foundation model, yeah, but you know, I always say with AI, if you tell it the wrong thing 1,000 times, you're gonna get a response that says that that's the right thing, you know. So we've got a long way to go, but I think we'll get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement around it, and I think it's valid excitement, but it doesn't mean that it can just do everything off the bat. Like there's still a need for that data modeling, like you said, structuring things, making sure everything is labeled and defined so that AI can understand what it is, and when you ask, it can provide more accurate answers.
Yeah,
Go
one more
ahead.
thing to add to that.
Sure.
So as far as these the AI large language models go and stuff, I mean that's again, you don't want to have to create those. So you're going to have to go out there and basically purchase or use one of them that's available. And the big players have spent like billions of dollars and countless hours curating this data for these models, right? So again, you're at the mercy of what they've done.
Mm-hmm. I see we have a comment here from Paul, since you called him out earlier. He said, at the moment, the trick with using AI to explain your data is tailoring the prompt for each data set. I suspect there will be a ton of advancement in the area in the near future. So yeah, the work that he's been doing is taking some visualizations, passing it off to AI to provide some insights to it, which Cognos has some out of the box with dashboards, but he's trying to use the WatsonX.ai, or a little bit more in-depth LLM, to be able to provide potentially some greater insights. And he's saying that the prompt is very specific or to the data set to be able to get accurate data back. So that's his insight there. I see another comment here from Robert about building a dashboard module using a data module, and they were able to get pretty far, including row level security and layout on the dashboard, but it went corrupt one day without another being able to recover. So they ended up going with the reporting module instead. I know on the dashboard front of Cognos, there was some issues with that in the past, with especially deploying between environments and connections and stuff. I think that's gotten better, but have you guys seen anything with dashboards having issues like that?
I have not specifically, no. So I can't really talk to that issue.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I think it used to be. I think they're getting a lot better in the more recent versions. IBM has done a lot of work there. But I see Robert also said users came from Click and were equally happy with Cognos Objects. So that's always good to hear. I don't know, we're Cognos fans over here, so it's always good to hear clients using them.
Well, again, I think one thing to consider there is that Cognos has been around for 30 years, probably. I don't know, might even be more than that. I'd have to ask Randy. But anyway, it's been around so long, and with all the advent of dashboarding and all these other new tools are coming in with Click and a few of the other ones, they were purpose built, right? I mean, they were built to do that kind of stuff. Cognos, they're working hard, and like you said, every release that comes out, there's more and more advancements. So again, Cognos has the pixel perfect reporting engine, and dashboarding capabilities that are only going to get better.
Yeah, for sure. All right, we're getting close to time here, but to kind of wrap things up, could you guys talk about some best practices for promoting self-service analytics internally, and maybe a little bit about how bringing in external partnerships like PM Square maybe helped contribute to having a successful project?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what PM Square is here for. We do training and try to help end users get to where they need to be. So I have sessions with some of my clients to to guide them. They'll send me a question. I'm trying to do this, and how do I do this? And I got so far, and then I got stuck. And so then we'll kind of walk through it together, and I'll just show them tips and tricks and things that I've learned over the years. Some of this stuff you just you know it's just knowledge that you gain from using it and working with it more and more. And the more you can use it, the more you'll be comfortable with it, and the more you won't mind going in and trying new things. And everything doesn't work right all the time. It didn't for me when I first did it, and I had to turn around and kind of start over sometimes. But I think you still have you have to really promote it in the team in your business, in the teams that you want to use it. You have to constantly be on them. Does anybody have any questions? Let's all meet about this. What are we working on? Who's doing what? Show us what you did. Because one person does something, the next person sitting next to them maybe didn't even know that they could do that. It's like, that's what I was wanting to do, and I didn't even know how to do it or how to start. Okay, well, you two get together and then work it out and show each other, and then you just kind of have to create those collaboration sessions between teams and maybe even departments to say, look, here's what finance is doing, sales. Some of this stuff is pretty cool, or vice versa. Let's try to work together and see if we can build some of this stuff. Or I've seen a lot of cases too where somebody goes, oh, sales built this really cool thing, and I want something similar for our finance. Can we do something? Can we adapt it, and with our data and make it look similar, but not the same? So I think if it's sometimes it's a slow process to get the adoption, but if you can get it rolling and you get people in there that like it, then it kind of sometimes it just snowballs.
Yeah, to expand on that, I think one of the key aspects of self-service analytics is basically like crowdsourcing, right? Because again, you may have your IT team made up of one report developer, and they have their own style and way of doing things, whereas you build out this self-service analytics environment where multiple people from multiple departments are with multiple ideas are building out things, and getting them to share their ideas, and maybe have a quarterly show and tell or something. But a key, I think, is, like Danny said, is kind of like interviewing the team members, finding out who wants to do this and how much effort they're really willing to put into this.
Yeah, I think having those user groups internally, especially at larger clients or larger companies where they have quite a few developers or quite a few business users that are in there, share the knowledge. Like you said, I think having that availability to get together and show off, potentially even we use Slack here, but like a Slack channel or Teams. Meeting that the people can just kind of share what they're working on as they're doing it, just a screenshot or something like that, just to be able to communicate that.
And I'll tell you what, another thing here is we've got such an amazing team at PM Square, so you can always bounce ideas off us, and if I don't know the answer, Danny might know it, Rory might know it, or any others, and it looks like Paul's here saying that Cognos has basically been around almost as long as you, Rory.
Almost. 1982, they released Powerhouse and then changed to Cognos in '83. Wow. Yeah. Well, I see ReportNet first released 2003. I was in IT for that one. I remember when ReportNet came out, but kind of along those lines, going back to it, I think training is key. We can talk about, how easy it is to use dashboards, how these user groups help people learn. But I think having that formal training is a big deal for a lot of people, and being able to, um, get someone there or be able to show them in more detail, take them through some use cases and help them understand it, is another big part of it that we can offer.
Mhm.
Yep.
All right. Any last comments from you guys before we wrap up? Or anything we didn't cover?
I don't think so. I think we got it covered. Thanks for a great session and for inviting me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, if you want help with your self-service analytics journey, make sure to reach out to us.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. We're always happy to help, always happy to discuss. Check out our website, pmsquare.com, and we'll look forward to hearing from you. Bye.